Hey everyone, welcome back to Nintendo Prime! It is Tuesday and I got this pouch over here for some unknown reason. And also my sunglasses are here, so let's just do the rest of this intro with the shades on. How you guys doing? I'm having a lovely day today. We had a wonderful stream last night. I actually have a shitload of homework to do today, so we'll see what happens the rest of this day and obviously into the streaming evening. But before I get into what we're talking about in this video, I gotta remind you, we're giving away a Switch OLED. That's right. A white Switch OLED is being given away on this channel right now. All you have to do is be subscribed, and we will have a live stream in early October to announce the winner. Now, getting into what we're going to be covering in this video, we have the full MPD results for the month of August, and let's just say Nintendo Switch is continuing to kick some arse. Oh, it's pretty sweet. And then we kind of have Nintendo being called out by one of their partners. You guys might know him. He is Hideki Kamiya from Platinum Games. Seems to be calling Nintendo and others out for something that I feel is very near and dear to many people's hearts and is something that kind of goes unaddressed by platform holders. And Nintendo is probably the worst offender. So it's definitely something that we're going to dive into because damn, I did not expect one of Nintendo's own partners to actually call them out for it. But if you guys know Hideki Kamiya, he will not hold back his thoughts and opinions for anyone. Oh, by the way, see the shirt? That's right, it's brand new merch we got right now. You can get this t-shirt, sweatshirts, hats, other things down in the description. It's literally at the top. Our top link is a link to our new merch store. So go check it out if you're interested. And let's get into this video. All right, so first up, let's talk about the MPD. I have everything all here. It all comes from Matt Piscatella, who works for the MPD, but we're just going to go through all the summary of information here. So first off, on the state of the market, August 2021 consumer spending across the video game hardware, content, and accessories grew by 7% when compared to a year ago to an August record of $4.4 billion. YTD, year-to-date consumer spending totaled $37.9 billion, a 13% increase when compared to the same period of 2020. So this year's been a bigger year for video games in the United States than even last year. Hardware was a primary driver of spending in August, led by the PlayStation 5 hardware dollar sales, which gained 45% when compared to August of 2020, which again would have been PlayStation 4 back then. Mobile and subscription pushed August content spending higher when compared to a year ago. Hardware-wise, August video game hardware dollar sales gained 45% when compared to August of last year to $329 million. This is the highest total achieved in an August month since 2008. Heyday of Wii and DS. Oh boy. And the third highest August month in total history. Year-to-date hardware spending has increased 49% when compared to the same period in 2020, totaling $3 billion. Insane. Nintendo Switch was the best-selling hardware platform in units, so they sold the most units in the United States last month. PlayStation 5 led in both time periods in terms of dollar sales, of course. After 10 months in the market, PlayStation 5 remains the fastest-selling PlayStation platform in history. So yeah, PlayStation 5 is still crushing it for Sony, but Switch continues to be the unit leader. So that's awesome. I think Switch is almost at like 3 years of being the unit leader in the United States. It's insane the run Nintendo Switch is on. It's set all sorts of records that might never be broken. Next up, we have some updates on some content that came out in August. Madden NFL 22 debuted as the best-selling game of August, while also ranking 4th among the best-selling games of 2021 year-to-date. This is actually the 22nd consecutive year that Madden NFL has been released and been the best-selling title in the month it was released in 22 years. Damn. Ghost of Tsushima ranked as the second best-selling game of August after finishing at 110 on the best-selling charts in July. The launch of Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut for PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 obviously drove that change. Humankind ranked first among tracked PC titles in August spending, while pacing 4th on the overall best-selling sales chart. Humankind currently ranks as the 5th best-selling tracked PC title of 2021 to date. Tracked is important because they don't track all games. The Last of Us Part 2 jumped to number 10 on PlayStation best-selling chart, etc. Software sales. Overall for the month, you have Madden at number 1, Ghost of Tsushima at number 2, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War at number 3, Humankind coming in at number 4, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales at number 5, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at number 6. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD at number 7. Minecraft at number 8. Assassin's Creed Valhalla at 9. And MLB The Show at 10. There are a bunch of Nintendo games in the top 20, including like Smash is in there, Mario Golf, Breath of the Wild, Super Mario 3D World, etc. But yeah, the top 10 only has, I think, 2 Nintendo-specific titles. Moving on, if we just care about Nintendo, we'll look at Nintendo's top 10 for the month. Of note, these are just physical sales. They do not include digital data because Nintendo does not provide digital data to the NPD. So these are just physical sales. Number 1 was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Number 2 was Skyward Sword. Number 3 was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Number 4 was Animal Crossing New Horizons. Number 5 was Pokemon Sword and Shield. Number 6 was Super Mario 3D World. Number 7 was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Number 8 was Mario Golf Super Rush. Number 9 was Super Mario Party. And then number 10 was Minecraft. So yeah, pretty interesting there. That is the top 10 for Nintendo Switch on NPD. We're not going to go over the other platforms. There's going to be a lot of samey games on the other platforms, because a lot of third-party games. But if we get into the accessories, August 2021 spending on video game accessories was flat when compared to a year ago at $164 million. Flat basically means exactly the same. Year-to-date accessory sales have reached $1.6 billion, which is a 12% gain over year-to-date last year. The Xbox Series Elite Series 2 wireless controller was actually the best-selling accessory of August. Remember, last year it was actually Joy-Con. In particular, the Skyward Sword Joy-Con really blew up. While the PS5 DualSense wireless controller white remains the best-selling accessory of 2021 today. It's kind of interesting to see the Xbox Elite Series 2 wireless seems to be the lead one for August. It seems to be changing a lot. Obviously, we've had months with the DualSense, months with the Joy-Con, now months with Xbox. All 3 platforms trading months on leading in accessories. So I find that to be actually really interesting. So that's basically the general gist of the MPD breakdown. I'll provide a link to Matt Piscatella's Twitter where you can get all of this information and more if you're interested. Next up, we get to talk about Hideki Kamiya. This guy up here, I know part of his head's kind of cut off. It just is the angle of the camera today, so sorry if that bothers some people. But we have a interview that went on at Video Game Chronicle. It was a really long-winded interview, and we've talked about parts of this interview before, referencing things about Bayonetta, referencing things just in general, like about Star Fox Zero. But today we're actually going to bring up something from that interview that is very interesting and has to do with the state of the industry when it comes to game preservation and the role that the people who control these games play. So Video Game Chronicle asked him, as a collector, what do you make of the recent explosion in retro game price? Because retro game prices are blowing up. It's been alleged that the market manipulation could be behind some of the recent $1 million auctions, and that references some stuff that's been happening with some of these massive Nintendo NES games going for huge numbers, and how there might be market manipulation in there to profit, the top tier collectors. But again, we haven't actually seen proof of it. There is a really in-depth YouTube video out there going into it, but again, there's no definitive proof that the market manipulation is happening, and obviously the people involved have denied it. Here's what Kamiya said in response. As a collector myself, I understand the lure of wanting to have that game in a sealed package. So he understands, like, hey, look, having a sealed copy that you're never going to touch, there is an allure to that. People want the value of that package and not necessarily of the game itself. I mean, it's a collector's item, right? Like, the point of it isn't to play it. The point of it is to have this valuable item in your possession, and you obviously hope it keeps increasing in value. But as a fan, it's a problem if somebody wants to play a game, but they can't get it. So this goes into well beyond just collecting, because this is just about playing games, right? He quickly turns this away from game collection to, hey, people want to play games. Let's talk about that. That's a bigger issue. So Kamiya is the one dragging up the issue of game preservation. That wasn't what he was being asked, but he's making it about that because he thinks that's a much bigger deal than these crazy auction prices for sealed copies of games. All right. It's a problem if somebody wants to play a game, but they can't get it because it's being traded at these ridiculous marketplaces. And the responsibility for keeping those games available belongs to the company that owns the IP. Damn. If people want to play a classic game and they can't because it's not available on new platforms and can't be found in its original form either, which is understandable, that's like a threat. It's holding game culture back. The people who own the rights to these games should be actively making moves to preserve game culture and making games available to everyone who wants to play them. Talk about boom, 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 shots fired. Hideki Kamiya, without naming specific companies, of course, has basically called out people like Nintendo. Companies like Nintendo that do not make their games available to new gamers, period. It has been even like the virtual console days when they did have through the N64, still didn't have GameCube, right? Still don't have most of the Nintendo's GameCube library. We don't have the entire NES library anywhere, the SNES library anywhere, the GameCube, Game Boy, DS, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Wii at this point. I can understand if Wii U, maybe not yet because it's not old enough, but seriously, all these classics. Guys, the Wii came out in 2006. It's practically classic at this point. Nintendo does not give us a way to play these classic games. They don't offer us the ability to purchase them. They don't offer us the ability to play them on their new systems. And Hideki Kamiya brings it up and he calls them out. He says it's fundamentally wrong, and I have a hard time disagreeing with that. We could argue about the pricing on retro games in the market and the sealed copies, because I don't know that the sealed copies are necessarily preventing people from owning some of the games. Like some of the sealed copies selling are things like Super Mario Bros., which is really, really, really easy to get a physical copy of because there were so many of them made. That being said, obviously getting them in that condition is a lot more difficult, hence the price. But the point is not so much that how hard it is to get the physical games, because I think Hideki Kamiya is pretty understanding that you're not going to print old games forever, right? You're not going to keep making NES cartridges today, like for old games. That's just not going to happen. But you should still have a way to get these games. You should be able to play them. Part of game preservation, part of respecting history, is allowing these games not just to be preserved in a museum, which there is a video game history museum trying to preserve all these games, whether it's digital files or physical files. They're trying to preserve everything. But it's also the responsibility of the people who own the IP to make them available. The thing is, there's not really a good reason not to make them available, since making them available, he's not even saying don't charge for them, right? Put them on Nintendo Switch Online. Put them on Virtual Console. Offer them on the eShop. He doesn't care. He just wants them available. As long as they're available to purchase and play on current platforms, that's what matters. And Nintendo obviously gets probably called out the most in this because they're the one company that's doing the worst job at this. And by the way, nobody's perfect. Xbox, as an example, has maybe the best backwards compatibility of all time. You can go all the way back to the OG Xbox and play a lot of those games, grab that physical disc, slap it in an Xbox Series X, and it'll play, or an Xbox Series S too. Well, I guess S doesn't have the disc drive, but you know what I mean. You slap it in an Xbox Series X and be good to go. The problem, of course, is that is still reliant on being able to find a physical copy. The digital version of that game is not necessarily available anymore. And so Xbox needs to improve on that as well. PlayStation has an entire subscription service that you can use to access a chunk of their classic games. Not all of them, though, but some. And this is where it kind of goes to where these companies might be doing it better than Nintendo. Nobody is perfect. Nintendo is just the worst offender because they hold so much of their old library back. And I understand bringing old games to new platforms isn't always as simple as snapping your fingers. You know, you got to emulate them, or you got to customize the code to run on a new platform. Like, I get that it's not as simple as just, bam, it runs. Hence why we see problems with emulation, even for Switch to this day, for certain Switch games on super powerful PCs, because it's not an exact science. Although Nintendo has more access to be able to do this properly than, obviously, the general public does. So Nintendo has less of an excuse. Still, Nintendo's a multi-billion-dollar company, the richest company in all of Japan. The only reason to not give us the ability to buy these games or have them part of a subscription service is literally because Nintendo doesn't want to, doesn't value it that way, doesn't think it's important, or they just don't have the files anymore. And that's an interesting part because Nintendo has actually in the past with a game on the eShop, or I should say a virtual console game, been discovered to be using ROM files that other people uploaded to the internet, which made people feel like Nintendo doesn't have those files anymore, which all you need is a physical copy of the game to get the files. And you would figure the company that made the games still has at least the raw files on a PC somewhere, let alone an actual physical cart, in their vault that they can take out and plug into a device that they should have to dump it to a computer. But it turns out sometimes Nintendo just relies on grabbing ROMs that are publicly uploaded on the internet, making all their lawsuits against people doing that a little bit ironic. But that's neither here nor there. This has been the number one argument people have had for piracy all this time, which is interesting because Nintendo mostly, while they go after ROM sites, they mostly care about the piracy of actual new Switch games, which I think there's less justification to pirate anything on current gen. Pirate games that are out of print for old consoles. New stuff is like, really? I don't know about that. So anyways, Nintendo, do better. Kamiya is calling you out. And for those who don't know, Hideki Kamiya is a massive partner with Nintendo. He leads the Bayonetta team. Just throwing that out there. He leads Bayonetta 3. He's like the lead guy on Bayonetta 3. He's literally a direct partner with Nintendo. And without saying their name, he's basically, bam, shots fired. Make your games available, Nintendo. Care about game preservation. Care about making your games always available to play. Not a problem on PC, of course, although sometimes finding the games can be difficult, some of the really old games. But technically, every game going back to just the MS-DOS, no actual Windows days, technically could still run on a computer if you finagle with it enough. Anyways, folks, I am Nathaniel Jets from Nintendo Prime. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm going to catch all you guys in the next video. Let me know what you think about all these news stories down below. Do you agree with Kamiya? What do you think about the MPD? Lots of good stuff today. You guys have a good one. I gotta get going. I got so much college homework to get to.